Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the webinar for New Music USA's fourth round of our New Music Organization Fund. My name is Scott Winship. I'm the Director of Grant Making Programs here at New Music USA. And I am joining you from the unceded lands of the Lenape people, otherwise known as New York City. Go ahead and change the slide. I'm joined on the call by my colleagues in the Grants and Programs Department at New Music USA, Manisha Chowdhury and Christy Ebert. We'll be taking turns on this webinar, going over everything and answering questions. We also have the wonderful services of our ASL interpreters, Erica, Cheryl, and Bonnie is our captioner, all from the wonderful Sign Nexus. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to move forward. We have a lot to cover. We're going to be going over the guidelines and answering questions. If you could please put your questions in the Q&A section and not in the chat if you can, that would be easier for us to answer them on the webinar. We'll be taking pauses to answer questions as well as we have some time at the end, and we have some time at the end to answer questions. Don't worry if we run out of time or somehow we missed your question. It is being captured here, and the answer will be posted alongside this video on our YouTube channel. So we're recording the session, which will be available shortly after this session, and we'll make sure to answer all the questions that are put in the Q&A as well, just to make sure that you have all that information when we post this. Okay. So we're going to go kind of over the guidelines of the program. We're going to talk about the program, the various funding areas that we have, the eligibility for the program, what is required in the application, and then of course review the review criteria and the process for that. We'll go quickly over the awards and deadlines, and then mainly try to focus as much as we can on answering questions as much as we can. So again, please use the Q&A if you can, and not the chat to post your questions, and Crystal will be typing and we'll try to answer some live as well. So the Organization Fund offers grants to nonprofit organizations, performance groups, dance organizations, festivals, presenters, and venues that need support to sustain their programming of new music, nurturing of music creators, and other services. Don't worry if you're not a nonprofit organization. We also award organizations that are not nonprofit organizations that have other designations as well, so that's fine. Do not need to be a 501c3 organization in order to apply. The main criteria for the fund for all of its areas are artistry of the applicant organization and or supported artists, the impact on the community of artists and or audience served, need for funding now, and then the organization's commitment to equity and inclusion. And we'll talk more about the review criteria a little bit later in this call, but just so you have that up front. Similar to last year, organizations will be asked to select their preferred funding opportunity from one of three strands: general support, creation of new work, or live music for dance projects. Please note that applicants may only apply for one of these three strands. We made these minor changes in response to feedback from the field. We wanted to provide more focus on the funds we have for music and dance and promote that more widely. We also want to make sure to be able to include organizations that work regularly with composers or creators, but may not be as mission driven by new music to be competitive in the general support strand. And then also we want to continue to provide general support to those organizations that are mission driven and work primarily with music creators. And that falls into our general support area. So this strand is for organizations that work regularly with and support the development of music creators and artists and offer a crucial resource to their community. So it's Basically, funds for this area are available for general operating support, general support for the organization's mission, what it does on a regular basis. And so it's not project driven, it's general support. Please note that organizations applying to this strand must have an operating budget of under 3 million over the last 3 years. So we tend to take a 3-year average over the last 3 years budget numbers to make sure that you're under that 3 million. So if there's a little fluctuation from year to year, we can even that out. Organizations seeking general support will be asked to present their year-round work on or offline, including the music you have planned, opportunities that you might provide to artists or music creators, what are the community of artists you serve, audiences you reach, of course, equity, diversity, and inclusion within your organization and its programming, impact on your community, and we ask for an endorsement letter, which we'll talk about a little bit later. The second strand of the organization fund is creation of new work. And so this strand is intended for a specific new music project or program. And we're particularly interested in funding the creation and or commissioning of new work. So a new work being created. Slightly different than the general operating support projects have a little bit longer timeline for this in order to be completed since it's creation of new work. So projects can take place any time between July 2024 and June 2026, and there are no restrictions on the organization's operating budget for this strand. Live music for dance is meant for dance organizations that work regularly with music creators and musicians. So it aims to support and encourage the use of creation of new and live music for dance performances, collaborations between music creators and composers and choreographers, and then to foster meaningful collaborations between musicians and dance companies. So funds for this area can be used for commission fees for the composer, time for the composer and choreographer to work together, and as well as dancer fees for the project being applied for. Again, similar to creation of new work, projects may take place anytime between July 2024 and June 2026, and there are, again, no restrictions on the organization's operating budget for this strand. So we have a little poll to see what strand people might be applying to. Oh, great, we have a
Looks
good.
like my test poll showed up. Sorry, guys. Pay attention, number 1. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, that seems in line. So we have both general support, creation of new work, as well as some live music for dance participants here. Great. I will move it over to my next colleague.
Hi, my name is Krista Ebert, and I'm excited to share with you about eligibility. So first, I'll go over the general support eligibility. Applicant organizations must be based and doing work within the U.S. They must be committed to producing, performing, and commissioning the work of living U.S. and U.S. territory-based music creators, and be committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion in their organization, engagement, and programming. So this is a continuation of general support eligibility. The applicant organizations must be committed to working and performing within their community, have a minimum of 3 years of performing, programming, and budget activity at the time of application, not have an annual budget that exceeds $3 million over the last 3 years, You have to have a dedicated organizational bank account, and you cannot be a university. This is the eligibility for creation of new work and live music for dance. They're same eligibility, but two different funding strands. The applicant organization must be based and doing work within the United States. Like a general support, have at least 3 years of performing, programming, and budget activities at the time of the application. Any newly commissioned work must be entirely new work. So proposals for expansion, arrangements, or restaging of existing work is not eligible. And then the organization, if you were a organization fund 2023 awardee, you'd have to complete all your activities from the creation of new music and live music for dance by June, when we would award this year's, and also have submitted your final report by June. And the creators and the musicians you want to work with, their eligibility is they have to be based and doing work within the US. There's no citizenship requirements. They just have to be living and working in the US during the project. They cannot be enrolled in a degree giving program. And they must have completed the previous awards from New Music USA, including Creator Fund, Next Jazz Legacy, Real Change, Amplifying Voices at the time of notification, which is June. And then I'm going to hand it over to Monisha, who's going to tell you about the application requirements. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So I'll be going over the application requirements, you'll see when you go into our SurveyMonkey Apply system. So one of our requirements is that we'd like to have an endorsement letter, and this is for everyone, for all strands, all 3 strands. So the endorsement letter would be a statement of support in the form of a letter, video, or audio. So we've tried to make this flexible. We will also need to know more information about your organization. And if you're applying for creation of new work or music for dance, we would like information about the project. Then we would like from all organizations information about equity and inclusion, and we'll go more into what, the questions, the detailed questions. We will also need music examples from everyone and financial information. So the endorsement letter or statement of support, which is required from everybody. So for the general support organizations, we would need a statement of endorsement from an artist or member of the community, of your community. So that could be an audience member, a stakeholder, partner, or performer. And for those who are applying for creation of new work and music for dance, we would need a statement of support from the composer that you're working with, or the musician or choreographer. And again, we want this to be flexible for everybody. So this endorsement can be a letter, a video, or audio file. Information that we'll need from everybody is an organizational bio. And we say up to 150 words. When we give a word limit, it's up to, so you don't have to fulfill, the word limit. But it's just a range. So an organizational bio, your mission statement, a brief outline of your upcoming program, and this could be virtual or in person. And we would love to have a highlight of your commitment to new music or the new music program plan or any artist development opportunities you're providing. And that's up to 250 words. And we would love for you to share why this funding is important to you right now. More information that we would need is we would love for you to tell us about your impact on the community that you serve. Could describe beneficiaries of your work, including creators, artists, audiences, participants, partners, and the broader community. And also share why you're cultivating creativity. Share ways you're cultivating creativity and leveraging new music in service of individual and community transformation. Then we'd like for you to summarize specific music programs or projects that New Music USA funding would help advance. So please include names of any specific music creators you have included in your program or project. Information about the project for those who are applying for creation of new work or live music for dance. We would need the creator and musician bio, the project description, and the project description would be an outline of what the project is, who is involved, and the anticipated timeline. And we would need information about equity and inclusion, and this is for everyone. So we would need a brief outline of how you address equity, diversity, and inclusion within your organization and programming. And also an outline of your policy for remunerating artists and creators, including in the context of canceled programs or commissions. And we would need music examples as well. So it's 2 to 3 samples of music you've commissioned or programmed. And this could be links to YouTube, Vimeo, or you can upload an MP3 file or WAV file. If you're uploading, please keep it under 500 megabytes. If they're larger, then we would prefer that you share a link to YouTube or Vimeo instead. And just make sure if you're making these links private, that you provide a password. And for the creation of new work and music for dance, please include a work sample of the music creator and or musician you're planning to work with. As far as finances are concerned, we would like to know the amount requested, and this could be up to $15,000, but just note that the average award is usually $7,000. And upload a current or projected budget. So that would include your request to New Music USA in your income projections, budget for your current financial year, and this is for general operating support. And also for those who are applying for new work and live music for dance, a budget of the project. Now, finances for general support only, we would need an organizational budget total, just the numbers, the amounts, representing the last 3 years. So this would be total income and expenses of fiscal 2024, 2023, and 2022. You could see that we have just, you just have to enter the amounts. And then we would want you to upload a recent audit or financial statement. I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Scott.
Thanks. I'm going to answer a few questions live here. Let's see, where did I see this one? One of the questions was if there was a priority funding for, is there a priority amongst the three strands? One strand receive higher consideration versus the other two. No, there's no priority. We do have a certain amount of funding for each strand, so that's how it will work. And so each one will be kind of evaluated within that strand. So there's not like a priority. One has a higher chance of getting awarded versus the other. It should scale pretty equally. Let's see. Saw a few other questions I want to answer live. So if you've received funding in the past, you are still eligible to apply through this fund. That's correct. We do ask if you received funding from the creation of new work or live music for dance strands that those projects be completed by June of 2024. But otherwise, or if you have received funding in the past, you are eligible still to apply. We're asking applicants to only apply to one of the three strands, so you'll have to make a choice on which strand you are interested in applying for, so please apply to only one. You can have more than one creator or musician in a creation of new work or a live music for dance project. There's a space for you to list all the collaborators in your project. So yes, that's possible. But of course, be mindful that you can request up to $15,000, and our average grant is about $7,000. So depending on how your project plays out, that may or may determine whether or not you want to apply for more than one composer or project as fees in that as well. So music examples, a couple of questions about music examples. How recent do they need to be? Well, they should be representative of the work that you're doing now. So if they are representative of the work that's being done now, I think that is key here. If it's a work that's from 20 years ago, is that still representative of the work that you're doing now? That's up to you to decide. So I think it should be representative of the work you're doing now or the work that you hope to be doing. Is it 2 to 3 work samples plus a sample from a creator, or 3 altogether? You'll have an opportunity for up to 3 total work samples. So you'll have to make a determination of how you want to divide those up, but you have space for up to three samples. Okay, I'm going to move forward in our PowerPoint here. So successful applications will exhibit some of the following traits. So obviously programming new music and providing opportunities for creators throughout the year and season. Commissioning and facilitating the creation of new work. Relationship building and collaboration with artists or other organizations and the community. And cultivating creativity as well as leveraging new music in service of individual and community transformation. So applicants will exhibit some of these. It could be all of them, maybe just a few. That's fine. Oh, there's more. Demonstrated artistic merit and performance history of the applicant institution, as well as potentially offering learning engagement and or artist development or educational opportunities. So those are some additional elements. So the review process, first, once applications are submitted, they'll be screened by the staff for eligibility and completeness. We do our best if there are issues with work samples or other to try to reach out, although we can't guarantee that will be the case depending on the amount of applications received. So please make sure that your links are working, and that if you do have private work samples, you provide passwords for those work samples so that the reviewers can accurately assess your work. So complete applications will move forward to peer review process completed by about 20, somewhere between 20 and 30 panelists, hopefully, working from around the country. They will review each application against the criteria: artistry, impact, need, and equity, diversity, and inclusion. They will provide scores on those review criteria and then have an average score for each application. That average will then create a ranked list from which we'll make award determinations using that ranked list and the funding restrictions as necessary. New Music USA is committed to inclusive and equitable treatment across all our activities. We serve a diverse community of applicants and grantees, and we welcome the unique contributions that all artists bring in terms of their education, opinions, religion, culture, music style, ethnicity, race, gender identity and expression, nation of origin, age, disability, sexual orientation, languages spoken, religious beliefs, and geography. We encourage applications from all people, including Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQIA+ led organizations, and organizations representing persons with disabilities. So a little bit about our review criteria. Applications will be reviewed against artistry as demonstrated by the quality of the submitted music examples, artistry of the organization's programming, including creators and/or musicians involved. Impact, the impact of the organization has on its community of artists and audiences served, and that could be, the creators you work with, that your audience is your community. So that includes a history of the regular and ongoing performing, programming, and engagement of diverse living U.S. territories-based music creators and/or impact on the creators and musicians involved. The next criteria is need and how you'd use the support and why it is important to the applicant organization now. So if you're applying for creation of new work or live music for dance, why the project is important to you now and the scope of the work that you're doing. If you're applying for general support, why is the support needed for you now in your overall program? And the last criteria is equity, diversity, inclusion, as demonstrated by the diversity of artists presented and/or the organization's commitment to equity and inclusion. Now we ask a question about the organization's commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, and this is where you would talk about how you're approaching this in terms of your programming, whether you have policies in place for your organization, basically how you're working in this area. Awards. We plan to award approximately 60 to 70 organizations. The average award will be around 7,000. You can apply for up to 15,000. Awarded organizations will be required to credit New Music USA support. We have funding. We fund nationally, so we have funding available for the for organizations across the country. So just be aware of that. The application, Krista, am I in your territory?
It's okay, you can do it if you want, but I'm happy to take over if you want a break.
Okay, great.
All right, so the deadlines and timelines. The application is open now, and you have until April 4th at midnight to finish it. That's Eastern time. We do have some wiggle room within the application, so if you're in California, it's still 11:59 your time. Our decisions will be made in June of 2024, so everyone will hear about the status of their application then. If you are applying for general support, the funds must be used for the 2024-2025 season. So think of it till June 2025 would be the grant timeline. And then creation of new work and live music for dance is a little bit longer. that those funds need to be used between July of 2024 and June of 2026. That's your project timeline. And with this webinar and the Q&A from the webinar, we're going to post on our program page and on our YouTube channel. I'll send an email through Zoom with that information directly once it's ready. If we don't answer all of your questions in the Q&A, know that afterwards we're going to type it out and share that document with you all then. And again, please use the Q&A to put your questions in, and I'm going to answer them typing, and Scott's going to help verbally. Here we go.
Understood that fiscal 24 is not over before applying. You should still be able to apply. If you have I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but feel free to clarify further if you'd like, or we can answer offline. If you do have questions, just to mention, please that we don't tackle here, please email grants@newmusicusa.org, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. We're already getting a number of questions, so be patient with us, and we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible. One question is if the same organization can apply for more than one project in the strand. This should be a single project if you can. That would be great. Please apply for one project. For the live music for dance, can the project include live performance of original commission work that has previously premiered? Yes, that's eligible. If that includes a live performance or musicians or artists involved in that performance of it, that's fine. One question about the budget, about budget activity. If there was an activity due to the pandemic, we are understanding of that a lot of organizations had breaks during the pandemic. We'll use the three most recent consecutive ones that we can that are available. That's fine. Are partial awards granted? Yes, partial awards are granted. We fund a range of awards depending on the request amount and our funding what our funding is available. And so we do fund partial awards. There are no restrictions on the work samples. They can be commercial recordings. That's fine. We don't have any restrictions on that. Question about whether the chat will be shared with all participants. There's a lot of really good questions and answers here, and it'd be awesome to refer to them. Yes, the idea is that this will be captured and then shared with the YouTube video that we'll post probably next week, and we'll have answers to the questions there. Krista, did you want to tackle a few?
I'm typing away.
Okay, you're typing away.
But I can read one. Let's see. My organization is a New Music Inc. recipient, which I believe runs through fall of 2024. Are we eligible, or do we need to complete that grant cycle first? Scott, I need your help with this one. I feel like if they were applying as an artist or as the commissioner or the composer, then they would have needed to finish it. But actually, Scott, can you just take that one? I'm confused.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
My organization is a New Music Inc. recipient, which I believe runs through the fall of 2024, which is true. Are they eligible, or do we need to complete that grant cycle first?
New Music Inc. is eligible to apply.
Okay, because they're an organization. Whereas if an organization is applying and let's say they have a creator fund grantee who is someone who is going to write the composition, then they would need to be finished with their grant first. Right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
of course. So one question about work samples: can the work samples be edited from an album, or do they need to be live? They do not need to be live. They can be commercial recordings. That's fine. Do we have any suggestions about the musical examples if you're working with multiple creators? I think this is I don't have any suggestions. I think that's up to you and what you feel is the strongest work to put forward. Whatever you feel is the strongest and most compelling and most what's the right word? Most representative of the project that you're hoping to get funding for. So think about that, and if you have some specific questions about it, we'll be happy to. For the general operating support on the supporting material pieces, may I add new work by artists that we presented but weren't necessarily commissioned by us? Yes, that's fine. That just gives us a sense of your overall programming. I think that's fine. They don't necessarily have to be commissioned by you if they're part of your programming that's represented for your organization. That's totally in line. Do all collaborators on a project need to be musicians? We have a visual element. That's totally fine. As long as there is a music creator involved with that, they do not all need to be musicians. That's fine. Let's see. Can you clarify the timeline for creation of new work? If we anticipate a premiere performance before July 2024, does that make us ineligible? We will have additional performances after July 2024. Or would this project go? You have a project scheduled. It'd be best if it could be within the timeline that we've outlined. If the projects are already completed, that isn't ideal. So I would, if you can have a project that's in that timeline, most ideal. So financial statement question about what if we can give an example of what a financial statement can look like. It depends on what strand you're applying for. For the general support area, we ask for a budget for your upcoming year, and that's could be an Excel budget that you have planned. If you're in terms of the financial statement that we're asking for, like an audited or financial statement, if you're a 501c3 organization, you'll have an audit that you would upload from your most recent financial statement. Otherwise, it could be a QuickBooks statement, it could be a bank statement. It depends on what your organization is using to track its finances. So some sort of financial statement that outlines your finances from the last year. That was clear. Can I apply for Can I apply for music new work as an ensemble leader? Correct. Can I apply for general support to present premiere new work? Budget income expenses be a tax form. So let's see. If you're an ensemble leader of an organization, you can apply for the ensemble. Yes, that's true. So you're presenting work as an ensemble in a group. That's fine. The budget income expenses, yes, can be a tax form. That's correct. Question on work samples: if we can submit past samples, commission composers instead of upcoming composers. If you're looking for creation of new work or commissioning a composer, it'd be great to get representative work samples from that creator that you're hoping to work with. If this is if you're applying to a general support fund, the general support strand, it could be any of the past work that you've done. That's fine. Let's see, I'm trying to find a few more that haven't been answered yet here. So for the creation of new work category, if we applied for the other New Music USA Creator Fund back in December, are we still able to apply for this category? You can. Please note that the organization fund, New Music Organization Fund, is only for organizations, whereas the New Music Creator Fund was for individuals. So if you're applying for the organization fund, obviously you'd be applying on behalf of an organization. If you applied for the Creator Fund as an individual, that's fine. And to have one in each, as long as it's an organization, that's fine. Could a person, I think similar question, could a person apply for organization funding for a nonprofit and be part of another organization's application? Again, these are organizations that are applying, so an individual that's applying for one organization and general support and then being a part of it as an artist for another project, I think that should be okay, since it would be under a different organization, as long as it's a different organization. Okay. Let's see, I'm gonna scroll down. How many more questions do we have, Krista?
We have 68 open questions. I'm trying. But we had 300 last time, so we're doing good. We got through 31 answered.
Okay, so question about the letter of endorsement. Is this about what the program meant to you, or is that letter saying your commitment to complete a commission? So it depends on what strand you're applying for. If you're applying for the general support strand, the letter should be about the strength of the organization, and it's about it should be about the organization and what makes the organization unique, what makes it value to its community, uh, along those lines. If you're applying for the creation of new work or live music for dance, that support letter should come from one of either the creators or the musicians that you're hoping to work with as a letter of endorsement and support for the project that is being proposed. Uh, is a reel of various artists presented acceptable for music samples? Um, you could do one sample like that. I would also suggest that that you have a few that aren't, at least maybe one or two samples that aren't just a reel of various artists. The panel's going to want to listen to a little bit of work to understand, but yeah, you could at least use one of the samples, I think, in that way, and that would be okay for the general support fund. Would a grant for operating support be suitable for a series or season of shows, monthly, weekly, or would the grant be more geared towards larger, shorter timeline presentations? If I'm understanding you correctly, it could be for a series or a season of shows. That would make totally sense. Uh, it's as a presenter, it depends on how you're presenting work. So, talk about the way you're presenting work. So if you're presenting on a monthly, weekly basis, series of shows, that's what you're working through. If it's broader, if it's a shorter time frame or a different time frame, just speak to what it is that you're presenting and how you're presenting it. That's fine. That I'm trying to catch up here. So there's a presenter who does outdoor concerts in the greater Boston area. It's been mostly funded by the local cultural councils. This was your third year. I'm wondering if I'm eligible. Yeah, you're eligible. This is your third year. Okay. We will work to have the slide deck also posted along with this. I don't think there's a problem with doing that. We can post the slides so that you have access to this. Just so a heads up, we'll do that. For the live music for dance grant, if the work is already written but not premiered for the live music for dance grant, that should be fine. It doesn't have to be totally newly created, like commission work for the project, as long as you're asking for funds for that performance, live performance of the work for live music for dance. For the creation of new work funding, do applicants have to meet only the organization's ability or the eligibility or the creator musician's eligibility or both eligibility parameters? If both, does the funding get split between the organization and the creator musicians? So we asked that, so for the creation of new work, the organization needs to fit the eligibility requirements that we asked for the organization, and the creator needs to fit the eligibility requirements for the creator. So you're going to be working on a project with a new creator, and they should both meet those eligibility requirements. The funding gets split between the organization and creator musicians. I mean, that's based on your project budget, how you're proposing to use the funds. I would assume that if you're applying for a creation of new work, that some of those funds would be used for the artist fees for the creation of the work. So I'm assuming that those would be split in a certain way, or however your budget is structured. Are there any budget restrictions if applying for project support, such as overhead? We don't have any restrictions on your budget, so your budget should reflect whatever the project is. So if you have those as a part of your budget, that's fine. We will likely prioritize, paying artists over paying overhead if awarded. So we'll be looking at your budgets and determining what areas align best with what we're to support. But your budget, there's no restrictions on your budget, but be advised there. For the creation of new work, we only submit the budget for the project, not an organization in general. That's correct. You just need to submit a project budget for creation of new work or live music for dance. We're not looking for an organizational budget. That's correct. Towards the start of the application, applicants are asked to provide a bio. Is this a personal artist bio? Are we asked later in the organizational bio? So in the initial bio section, should the applicant provide their personal artist bio? This is a little bit of a quirk in our system for those of you who register as the person filling out the application. There is a separate section that asks you for the bio. You can supply your bio or the organization's bio there. That's fine. There is a space though later for you to ask that where we ask for the organization's mission. So, I think that's up to you in terms of how you want to use that. I've seen people do both, but that's just a little bit of a quirk in the system. And so I know that it seems like you might have to do that twice. So apologies there. Please, we ask that organizations only apply to one strand, either general support, creation of new music, or live music for dance. So just apply for one strand. Can the new music be for a youth orchestra? Yes, of course, for a youth orchestra is great. Love youth orchestras. So by all means, that is eligible. Does it matter if creators are involved in multiple organizations or projects? I think I would need to know a little bit more about what that means. Um, I'm not sure I understand that question, so we'll follow up with a clearer question when we supply, or if you have a specific project in mind that you have a question about, please email grants@newmusicusa.org. Back to you. So someone's asking what we find makes an applicant most competitive. And can you please share what helps panelists understand applicants best? That's a very good question. What makes an applicant competitive? I think getting a sense of the organization, what the organization's sort of mission is really important, and what makes that organization unique. So, there are a lot of organizations that do similar work. So what makes your organization unique? Why did you start this organization, or why are you passionate about this organization? What makes you passionate about the work that you're doing? Usually passion comes across very well in the application process. So understanding, what drives you as an organization? What are you, why are you compelled to do this work? What makes you excited about it? Those are things that are going to be, if we can get a sense of that in your application, then that usually helps. The applicants, the review panel will look at the review criteria, and they're all equally weighted. So one isn't more than the other. So obviously they're going to be looking at the programming of the work that you're doing, your commitment to working with music creators, or the project that you're doing, and looking there. They'll look at what the need of the organization is and why it's important. Why is the funding important now? I know funding is important in general, and that, but is there, we're coming out of post-pandemic stuff. A lot of organizations are still struggling there. Maybe there's a great need to re-up your programming. So think about what it is that you need and why it's important. Think about the impact of your organization on the artists that you serve and your community is also a good way to sort of talk about why it is the work that you're doing, and why you want to serve the artists and community that you're serving. And that could be through programming, that could be through commissioning, that could be through educational programs. Each organization is a little different. So that really, the question to that impact, the answer to that impact question is really depending on the organization. Let's see. Looks like I answered a bunch of those. Could you?
Krista,
Yeah,
Krista, this is the interpreter, Cheryl. Can you let my colleague have camera access, please?
Oh, great.
you got it. Let me find. I'm sorry. Here we go.
ASL interpreter.
Got it.
Thank you.
I'm looking for attendees. Maybe she is. And she should be able to put her camera on now.
Yeah.
Trying to make a co-host. There we go. All right, now the camera should be workable. And I will pin. Great. Sorry about that.
Okay, we have a few minutes left. Thank you, Krista, for taking care of that. So one question is, we're applying for general operating support for one of our flagship programs. Do we need to know the artist that will be receiving for your recording studio session or for a new project prior to submitting the application? We have an artist committee that helps us curate the musicians, and we typically wait until we have secured funds to ask them to help us with that curation. I don't, if you're applying for general operating support, I don't think you need to know in advance who those artists will be, but you would want to speak to the impact of that and the past work that you've done. So if you speak to the past work in relation to the upcoming, that should be fine for general support. Let's see. So for general operating support, one thing we are doing this year is implementing infrastructure like database CRM to support our recent growth in budget, programming, and outreach. Would it be worth it to mention that our operating expenses have increased, or should we keep our focus on upcoming programs? I think trying to think of what's the best way to approach this. I think it's good to talk about the growth of the organization, that the organization is growing and think directions. I think I wouldn't solely talk about that. I would make sure to talk about your upcoming programs as well. But I think talking about the organization holistically and its growth is not a bad approach. Let's see. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure. See if there's another question. So I'm a development director for a music education nonprofit in Houston. We run a summer music festival for composers, instrumentalists, and vocalists in grades 3 through 12 each summer. Part of this program is a 5-week composition intensive for high school composers. They work on collaboration with Houston Ballet Academy dancers, create new works. That sounds great. Is this program eligible since it involves students and not professional composers? Are you talking for the creation of new work or for general operating support? I guess that would be the question I would have to say. I think if you're going for, I think it would be more, if it's for the creation of new work, probably probably wouldn't work in this context since they're students and that probably wouldn't work in this, but if it was a general support for the work that you're doing with composers, seems more likely a fit for what it is the work you're doing. For the little I know, I mean, that's what I can tell. Okay. Go down here to the bottom. There's so many questions. I'm browsing through. Can the budget Excel file serve as a financial statement? If you had like a bank statement or a tax statement, that would be ideal for a financial statement. If you're uploading a budget, Excel is totally fine. But as for the financial statement, it'd be great if you had a bank statement or a tax statement. Probably a tax statement would be better if you had such a thing. Great. Yes, this session will be available after the fact. We'll have it posted to our YouTube channel and probably on the New Music Organization Fund website, on New Music USA's website. After the fact, we'll have a link to that there if it's not already. Running out of time. Our typical programming includes both new music, dance, and multimedia film as a backdrop. We also create music video content. With submitting an application, should we be favoring the music side or the dance element? Thank you. If you're applying for general operating support, I mean, I would, focus on the organization as a whole. We're interested in organizations that work for the general support that are driven by, working with living music creators in particular. That just bear that in mind. If you have a specific project that you want to work specifically with a creator in the dance element of your organization, then I would go for the live music for dance project. I hope that helps. Okay, we're at time. That went fast. Thank you everyone for joining us. We want to be mindful of your time. Thank you to our ASL interpreters. I very much appreciate your support in this, Erica and Cheryl and Bonnie. Thank you so much for your help with this. As we mentioned, this webinar will be available online probably next week. We'll be taking any questions that we did not answer in the Q&A section or in the chat, and make sure that we answer those questions. And those will be available along with this video. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time to spend with us, and for considering applying for a new music organization fund. We look forward to seeing your application or talking to you more around questions you might have. So thank you.